Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Gaylene, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you on today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Now, before we dive in, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. So, my name is Gaylene Gomez. I am the owner of Compass Rose Nutrition and Wellness. I'm a holistic nutrition coach. I was a registered massage therapist. I study all different types of health stuff, different types of modalities. But as of now, I work with women who are kind of in that midlife, struggling with low energy, trying to build healthier habits. And I have an online coaching business that supports them with different programs and memberships and so forth. Me personally, I live in Alberta, Canada. I live with my husband and my dog. Her name is Naya. So I'm a dog mom, and it's just getting to be some nicer weather here right now. I love your weather in Australia. Here I'm kind of in that seasonal craziness. So enjoying every bit of the warm weather that I can.
Yes, well, our warm weather is just ending because we are heading towards winter, but we are very lucky at the minute because we're still getting like low 20s in autumn. So for us, that's pretty amazing. But today
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about women's health with you, especially that age bracket of that sort of 40 to 50-year-old woman where it does seem like things start to change.
Yeah.
And, so many women say, I'm not doing anything different. I'm doing everything the same, but my energy levels are dropping or I'm gaining weight and I can't seem to, shift this bit around the middle. So, what sort of advice do you have for women in this age bracket if they start to see these types of changes coming in?
Absolutely. I think it'll be a great conversation today, going over a few things that they can do like this. But in the beginning, we need to start thinking about what is our body doing differently, right? The hormones are working differently as we age. The way that we even act and eat and do different things is different. My body's definitely not working the same as it did in my 20s. If it was, I could stay up till midnight, get up early, work two jobs, go, go, go. And our bodies are just in such a different state. And so we need to adjust with it. And a lot of times we keep trying to do the same things we used to do and we're frustrated with the results. So, for example, if we're eating the same way in our 40s and 50s that we ate in our 20s, our body's just not going to react the same way. So, between all the different things that happen in our body as we age, from hormones to the way that our energy and our stress manifests, from how we handle our careers and our lives and the busyness. So today I love to kind of dive into this because a lot of women just focus on the nutrition side. Will say, I'm eating the same way I always used to eat. What's different? And today I think we can focus a little bit on what is different. What are those other pieces that might be missing?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I think too, as we start to age, we need to look after our bodies a little bit more. We need to manage our stress. You brought stress up, and I think that's a really big piece of the puzzle because as women are sort of entering their 40s and 50s, they may have kids, that they're dealing with, but they also may have like older parents that they're trying to balance as well. There may be other emotional stress coming through from, say, jobs or friendships.
Absolutely.
So all of these things can add up.
And over years too, right? When we are a bit younger, things kind of slide off, but maybe it starts to weigh on us after doing it on repeat for years and years. And our bodies need to continually get that support and have some improvement and have some love and not just keep pushing through. We can only push through for so long on, say, a limited, restricted diet. We can only do it for so long. Maybe it worked in the beginning, but our body is smarter. So we need to keep up with it and really give it what it needs.
So, what are the things that we should know about our hormones changing around this time and how that can affect, our weight, our energy, our emotions, and I guess so much more?
Yeah, so it is definitely a big topic, right? It's a big can of worms, and every woman is a little bit different. So when I work with my women, yes, we absolutely take into account that we are aging, but even more so, I want to help them personalize what's going on for them in their life. So, for example, when we talk about the hormones and things that might be changing, with our hormones changing, it can affect our sleep. So, we need to then, some women are going to need to really manage their sleep. With some women, it is going to be things like stress. So then we do absolutely need to manage stress. For some women, it's going to be that they are maybe sitting at a desk for really long hours, and they're not doing those weight bearing strength exercises anymore. So for some women, it's going to be really addressing that. So there's absolutely a lot of different pieces that are affected, but I think taking a really personalized approach with each woman to really address what they're going through is really important as well.
And if someone's listening in and they're sort of like, yeah, this is kind of sounding like me, but I'm not sure where to start and, where to start with a personal approach, what do you suggest?
Yeah, because a lot of women do have that, um, fear of, oh, my friend was on this diet and it worked good for them, but it doesn't work for me. Or I, heard about this really fancy shake or this plan or this something and it doesn't work for me. Whereas we want to make sure that every woman has their own personalized plan. So a personalized plan is going to not only take into account what you're eating, but also the sleep, the stress, the energy, what happens at your work, what happens in your family, all those other pieces as well.
And do you recommend that women, start with going to visit their doctor and getting a blood test, or working with someone to get maybe a hormone panel done, or just even, going through their daily, routine and what they've got scheduled in?
Yeah, so good question. I work with women that often have been to the doctor and they're often told they're fine. They've had the blood test and they're fine, or they've had different things and they're fine. So I absolutely encourage all women to really advocate for themselves. Go back to your doctor and ask questions. If they say it's fine, go and tell them, like, I'm really not feeling well or I'm struggling, and push a little bit harder. Now, many doctors absolutely are going to be supportive and help you really dig in. And then there's cases that I see a lot of the times where they're kind of blown off and say, oh, you're aging, it's normal. And they don't want to have to live like that. So, absolutely, a great place to start is with your doctor. Make sure nothing else bigger is going on. But if you feel like everything is fine, everything's coming back normal, and you're still not feeling your best, that's where I usually step in with the clients to help them figure out how they can optimize their health. What can we do better? What can we do more of? What can you do less of? When it comes to lifestyle and nutrition, there's almost always something we can do more of or a little bit better that maybe isn't getting recommended from their main healthcare professional. But I do like to work alongside of whoever your health provider is to make sure that, like you said, is there any panels or labs or anything like that that need to be addressed? Because there's other things that could always be going on. We want to make sure that gets addressed as well. But then come at it from a more holistic side and make sure that we are taking into account the stress, the sleep, the nutrition, the exercise, all of those as well.
Mm. Well, I think too, I know I've worked with clients before and they're like, yeah, I have a pretty healthy diet, I'm, pretty good. But then when we actually sit down and we start going through, okay, what would your typical breakfast look like? And, morning tea and that sort of thing, we can sometimes see some patterns coming through that maybe they don't realize or they don't potentially think about. And
Yeah.
we can make some changes there as well.
Absolutely. Like you said, even just not thinking about it. There's so many things getting thrown at us all the time. You should do this and you need to eat that, and we should all do this and we should all do that. If we tried to do everything that we are being told, it's just really overwhelming. And as we know, when we're really overwhelmed, we don't really take any action. And so that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is really personalizing a plan that's going to work for you as an individual.
And I know you work with 4 pillars of health. Can you share those 4 pillars with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of touched on them a little bit already, but I'll go through them in a little bit more depth so that we can get a really good look at each piece. And this was really because I had so many clients come to me saying, like you said earlier, I already eat healthy. Why do I still have this belly bulge? Or I already eat healthy. What's wrong with me? I already do these things. And so that's where we start looking at the other areas of our life. So, first pillar that I work with absolutely is nutrition, it's nourishment. It's really making sure that we're actually nourishing our body with all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we need for our body to thrive, right? We need to not restrict ourselves. Some diets mean that we're not eating enough food. I see that a lot. So, we need to eat enough of the right food that our body can thrive, not just survive. So making sure that that's in place. is pillar one. Then pillar two is movement. So think about the women that do sit at a desk all day, right? We're just sitting on our butt for hours on end. So movement could be anything from actually going for a walk after dinner in the evening. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It could be packing some gym clothes to the office and actually taking a class on your lunch break. It's really just about moving our body, whether it's swimming or biking or walking or Pilates or whatever activity you enjoy. We need to move our bodies, most of us a lot more than we already do. And we need that variety too, right? We need cardio, we need strength training. You talked about as women get older and what happens in our bodies. If we're not including that strength training, then we have all kinds of problems, osteoporosis and arthritis and different types of things. We need to really be including a variety of movement in our day. And then the third pillar that we're looking at is sleep. So we touched on sleep a little bit, but I get so many clients that come to me saying, I'm doing all the healthy things. I work out, I eat healthy. And then I ask about their sleep. And they said, well, I'm really busy, so I don't go to bed till late. I have to get up really early. I push snooze on my alarm clock 3 times. You know, the kids have homework. They have all these other things on their to-do list that by the end of the day, they don't have enough time to get their 8 hours of sleep. They get 5 hours or 6 hours, maybe on a weekend, 7. And so sleep is so important for all of us. There's a lot of bodily things that happen at night. Our cells regenerate at night while we sleep. And so if we're not getting that good quality sleep, not just the hours, but actually good quality sleep, then our body's not having that chance to rest and recover. And it connects to all the other pieces too. If you don't have a good sleep, are you actually waking up and making a healthy breakfast? Or are you running out the door with coffee and a bagel? If you don't have a good sleep, are you actually going to get that workout in that we talked about? Or are you going to skip it because you're too tired? So sleep is such a huge piece of the puzzle, and it's often one of the pieces that can really shift the progress. You know, if the woman is saying, I'm doing all the things, I'm eating healthy, then I ask you, how is your sleep? And then the fourth pillar is that mindset, that stress piece. So when we're stressed, our body is in that fight or flight mode, right? Our parasympathetic nervous system is just activated and we're go, go, go in that heightened anxiety all the time. Then our body and hormones and everything's just not working properly, right? Our heart's racing a little bit more than it should be. Our mind is racing a little bit more than it should be. We need to get into that rest and digest mode for everything to really work properly. And so mindset and stress come to that fourth pillar. And again, we can interconnect them to the rest. If we're really stressed at night, when you're trying to go to sleep and your mind is racing, you're not going to get that good quality sleep. So when we start connecting all the dots of these pillars, we can see how interconnected they really are. And when we address one of the pillars that's maybe on the lower end, the struggling one, it can actually bring the rest up as well. Sleep, for example. You're eating healthy, everything's great, and you're getting a terrible sleep. If we just work on sleep alone, chances are everything else gets a little bit better as well.
Mm. And I love that, just starting with one thing at a time, small steps, because I think sometimes too, when we think, you know, maybe people listening in and hearing these 4 pillars and going, yes, I need to work on my sleep and I probably could move more and I should include my nutrition. And it becomes a bit overwhelming if we start to try to concentrate on all of them.
Yeah, it does. So I have kind of a little exercise that I like to take my ladies through. Do you want me to run through that? It's fairly short and easy.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I agree. When we're trying to do all the things, it's overwhelming and then we don't do anything. So what we can do is kind of pick it apart, really do a self-assessment and really be honest and true how we're doing. So take just a blank piece of paper, like a sticky note, blank piece of paper, and draw quadrants. And then give yourself a score, an actual rating. Be honest with yourself and take each quadrant for one of those pillars. So nourishment, movement, sleep, and mindset. And ask yourself, in the last 7 to 10 days, how have I actually been doing in my healthy eating? Have I been eating all the healthy, nourishing foods with all my meals every day? Or have I been either skipping meals or just having coffee on the way out the door? Am I ordering pizza at night because I'm too busy? Just give yourself an honest score out of 10. One being, my nutrition's terrible. I need to do better. 10 being, I'm really dialed in. This is something I'm really strong at. I love to cook. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I'm doing really great. Most people are not a 1 or a 10, but pick yourself somewhere in there. And then you're going to go through each pillar and do the same thing. So, second pillar, movement. In the last week, how has your exercise been honestly? We can always look at this and say, well, the last week has been, different or not normal or difficult or whatever, but just it's a snapshot in time. Sure, your results might be different next week, but take a good, honest look at yourself for this week. Do the same with sleep, do the same with stress. At the end, you're going to have 4 scores written down, and your lowest score is usually the one that's going to be most important to work on. It's also usually going to be the one that gets you results fastest. It's usually the one that you don't take the time to prioritize. Maybe you don't like it as much. Maybe you don't like cooking, so nutrition's just at the bottom of the bucket. Maybe you don't like exercise and working out, so it's just not one of your priorities. But if you shift that and you just do it even for a week, get really strong at that pillar, check in with yourself again in a week, and chances are things will be a little bit better. So instead of feeling like, okay, Gaylene told me I need to eat healthy and move and go to bed and meditate and do all these mindset things, take one of these things and do it, but pick the lowest. If your movement is already a 9 on the chart, then don't pick that one because you're already good at that one. Pick the one that you kind of struggle with and decide to prioritize it and learn more about it and pay attention to your own habits around that topic and see what it actually does for you.
I love that. And we want to mention too that I think sometimes women are very good at not realizing how high their stress levels are because a lot of it becomes, their normal routine or they've been dealing with it for a
Yeah.
long time. So I'll often have clients that come in and we'll look at their stress levels and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not stressed at all." And we'll go, "Okay, well, you're working full time, you've got 2 teenage kids that aren't helping with any chores around the house. So you're doing everything, the cooking, the cleaning, you're running them around. You've got elderly parents that you're balancing with as well. And, we kind of look at it and go, well, actually, there is quite a lot of stress here, but they don't actually register what or how that may be manifesting in their body."
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times as women, we do tend to put other people first. And we just think, well, sure, there's that stress, but that's normal. That's just part of my life. It's not extra this week. So we need to look at the difference between acute stress and chronic stress. And so when we talk about the parasympathetic nervous system, it is that part of our body that shifts us from fight or flight. So that, I'm running away from a tiger type stress versus that calm, think meditation, peaceful mind. So we want to spend more of our time in that peaceful state of mind. We can't always be running away from a tiger, but not all stress is running away from a tiger. Stress could be that you drive an hour to work in really heavy traffic and people are honking and you're running late and you were supposed to drop the kids off and your kid forgot their lunch and you have this other meeting you forgot about. And if that happens on a regular, almost daily basis, then that also is putting you in a state of stress. Now, maybe it's not something you're counting because it's just part of daily life, but your body's counting that. You're in that heightened, a little bit more anxiety type state. And think about the other, you mentioned whether you're caring for parents or whether it's job responsibilities or just caring for home or whatever you have to do, that daily ongoing stress, that chronic stress, still not good for us. Even if you're not running away from a tiger in that really acute stress, don't have to be having an anxiety attack to count this as stress. If it's daily and continual and ongoing, that takes a toll on us as well.
And, for all the listeners listening in, don't discount all that. You may be doing it every day and it may be part of your routine. But as Gaylene was saying, it will start to, build up emotionally, physically, mentally. So it is something that we need to be aware of.
Absolutely. We were talking earlier about what's different in our 40s and 50s. There are a lot of things different. Sure, physiologically, there's definitely a lot of different things happening in our body with our hormones and so forth. But I also feel like this is one of the things that's different is that we've now been trying to hold it together for so long, right? When you're 20s, maybe you were just dealing with this extra stress for 5 years of having your own bills and rent. By the time you're in your 30s, you have extra mortgage responsibilities or job responsibilities or family responsibilities. But the chronic stress over the years, over the decades, can really start to take a toll on us. And sometimes it's in little ways that we don't recognize until they're big ways. There's, it's not a good joke, but there's this joke that as a health coach and as a nutritionist, I work with women on weight loss. So there's this joke where it said, last year my New Year's resolution was to lose 10 pounds. And this year it's to lose 20. Right? Like we have the best of intentions for ourselves, but year after year, life just piles up. Weight creeps on, stress piles up, responsibilities, our house gets messier. The things do pile up in our lives. And over the years, a little bit here and there you don't notice. And then all of a sudden you're 20, 30 pounds overweight. And you're like, where did this come from? It's been creeping up this whole time. You can picture your stress the same way. All of a sudden, life just feels like it's too much. It's been creeping up this whole time.
And I think a lot of people sort of think of stress as being a big event, having a loved one pass away, that's a big event. But as you were saying, generally, what can lead to, say, burnout? Again, a lot of people go, oh, nothing major changed, but I just feel burnt out. And as you said, it's these very small things that have just been accumulating all the time. It's almost just like that straw that broke the camel's back. It's something very tiny that can tip you over the edge, but it's that accumulation that's led you to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Think of your basement or your garage, wherever you put your extra stuff. At one point, when you moved into that house, there was only a few things in that garage. And over the years, it's kind of where everything just gets shoved. And a few years later, you're like, where did all this stuff come from? We have to remember that that happens in our body and in our health as well. The little things, like you said, people dying, but we also have to take into account work stress and family stress, daily stress, that traffic that you're sitting in every day. Those things add up as well.
Hmm. And if, listeners are thinking, yep, I want to make some changes, maybe there's some just simple healthy habits that I could start instigating, to really just try to support myself and nourish my body. What are some simple healthy habits that you like to suggest to your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say let's break down the 4 pillars and really think about a couple small items under each piece. Because again, if we start listing healthy habits, it might feel overwhelming in the sense that you need to feel like you need to do all of them. Chances are you're already doing some good healthy habits, but we need to include something you're not doing. So we could take, if you look at the nourishment pillar, are you drinking lots of water? Are you eating vegetables with every meal? Are you eating lots of leafy greens? So if your low score under that little quiz was nourishment, then pick 1 or 2 things under that category that you could be doing better. That healthy habit of taking that extra serving of veggies on your plate at every meal, making a smoothie for a snack instead of whatever, a donut. If we look at the movement pillar, it could be as simple as we talked about as taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Or you've heard it said many times before, park at the other end of the parking lot when you go to the grocery store. Just create some extra steps for yourself. Maybe it's finding a neighbor that wants to go for a walk every evening with you around the neighborhood. That evening walk to digest your dinner is really great for us. So if it's the movement pillar, where can you actually fit it in realistically in your life that it will actually become a habit? If you're just going to go purchase a gym membership that you'll never have time to use, that's not the best healthy habit. So it has to be something realistic that you can actually stick with. Um, if we look at the sleep pillar, it could just be saying, I'm going to go to bed 10 minutes earlier every night this week. It could be that you're going to start having a bath in the evening and really winding down. It could be that you're going to turn off all electronics at least 1 hour before bed. It could be that you're going to put some lavender essential oil in your bedroom to have a good sleep. It could be you're going to do a meditation before bed. So I don't want this list to feel like one person needs to do everything we're saying. Pick out one of these and just really commit to it. If it's the mindset and the stress one, there's so many things we could do under this category. Essentially, it's really making sure that you are actively doing something to manage your stress. Because we can't say, I'm stuck with my stress. There's nothing I can do about it. My kids are, only this old. We need to look at things you can do. So it's about having tools and actually working on it. So is it taking time for yourself? Is it starting some journaling? Is it listening to a meditation? Is it having that bath? Is it maybe taking the family out for an evening walk? What will actually help you manage your stress is going to be dependent on what is the cause of your stress. What is your time? Where does it come from? Kate can probably put this out for you guys later, but I actually have a quiz that has a personalized plan to some healthy habits that you can implement based on which pillar you need to work on. And so you'll take the quiz to figure out which pillar you need to prioritize. It's a bit of a different quiz than what we just did, but at the end, you'll get simple, healthy habits that give you some ideas as to what you can focus on. You can essentially do the quiz once a month and then figure out which healthy habit you need to implement next. So pick one, do it for 30 days, do the quiz again, pick another one, do it for 30 days. And so pick out something that is actually going to make a difference and fit into your lifestyle.
I'll link that up in the show notes for everybody listening so you can check it out there.
Perfect.
Now we have to talk about bloating because I think this is another, everybody now and again can get bloating, but I think it's one area that women often struggle with. And, it can be very uncomfortable and sometimes it can be ongoing as well.
Yeah. I used to struggle with bloating. So this is one that was huge for me. It was actually one of the reasons I studied nutrition in the first place was because my digestion was just such a struggle. And a lot of people would say, oh, don't eat this or don't eat that, because that's what worked for them or that's what they heard. And it wasn't necessarily what my problem was. So bloating is, as you mentioned, it can be ongoing. It can be so frustrating. It can be painful. It can disturb your sleep. It can cause the stress. It can affect your digestion and the actual absorption of nutrients that you're eating. So bloating is not something to just skip over. It's not just something we need to deal with. It's absolutely something that we can figure out. And it's really important that we do figure it out because long-term health of figuring out why we're bloating is really important. So one of my best tips, and it's not a tip people like, is to start tracking. We often just eat mindlessly. We eat out of habit. We eat out of routine. We have our go-to meals that we cook at home. We have our go-to places we like to eat out. We do a lot of things just being creature of habit. We do it because we do it, because that's what our family likes. That's what we have time for. That's what's in the fridge. So I have a tool called a food, mood, and health journal. But basically what it is, you don't need this tool to do it. It's super important that we know what our own triggers are. And the only way we can really figure that out is to track it. We might say, oh, whenever I eat dairy, I don't feel good. Is it all dairy? Is it specifically this one thing or that one thing? Some people feel like it's bread or they're gluten intolerant or, but what if it was bread and cheese? Then was it the bread or was it the cheese? Was it the combination of both? And so with the Food, Mood, and Health Journal, what I actually have my clients do is track everything for a week. This is not something you have to do forever. It's not ongoing. I'm not going to say track your food and count your calories and all of that. We're really just mapping out what you eat and addressing how you feel. So we have to remember that not all things are instant. Doesn't mean we're going to eat something and immediately get bloated. Sometimes we need to look back. So I want everyone to keep track of the specifics of what they eat in what food combination, and then actually track things like bowel movements. How much water did you drink? What was your energy level? What were your symptoms? What is your digestion like? What's your sleep? So the Food, Mood, and Health Journal has all of these different things. Write it all out for a week. And we can start looking back and drawing connections. It's like, okay, whenever I eat this, I feel like this. And I do this a lot with women on energy as well. Sometimes this might just be a more relatable example for a lot of people. Think about if you have that afternoon energy crash, 2 o'clock every day, I'm exhausted, right? So many clients say that to me. So I want to look back. What did you eat at lunch? What did you actually eat for breakfast? How did you sleep last night? What did you eat last night for dinner? So if you're exhausted today at 2, we need to backtrack and see, did you fuel your body properly for breakfast? If not, that might be why you're tired. When it comes to bloating, we can do it the same way. We can start drawing the connection of every time you're bloated, whatever, 6 hours earlier, you did this or you ate this. And we can start looking, are those the days that you didn't drink enough water? Are those the days that you were really stressed? Maybe they are all eating a particular kind of dairy. Maybe it is all eating beans and lentils. So there's not one thing that's going to cause bloating for everybody. But if we dig enough, if we get to try and be detectives around this, we can figure out what it is for you. And once we know what's causing us to feel a certain way, then it becomes a choice. Then we become, an active participant in this. We can decide, I'm not going to have this because I know it makes me feel yuck. Or I know this is going to make me feel yuck, but I love it so much, I'm just going to have a bite and be okay with that. I can use another example around that with alcohol. If, let's say, I'm going to have a glass of wine, I can handle a glass of wine. I know it's going to be fine the next day. If I have 2 glasses or 3 glasses, I can't get to 4 glasses personally, but let's say I have 2 glasses or 3 glasses, I know that I'm going to struggle the next day. So I don't need the Food, Mood, and Health Journal to tell me that. I know it. So then it becomes a choice. And I would choose to probably just have the glass of wine and not have any more because I know that I'm going to feel bad. If we know what causes our bloating, then we can choose to do it or not. We can actively try and create a meal that doesn't make us feel that way. And so using this type of tool and getting down to the nitty-gritty of what's causing it is so, so important because then we know what to do to fix it.
And it's such a simple tool. Like, as you said, you've just got to write it down and track it. It's not costing any money. It's only a
Yeah.
little bit of time, but it can give you so much insight. And as you said, not just into, say, it's bloating you're working on, but, maybe you think you're getting more sleep than you're actually getting, or maybe you,
Yeah.
think you're drinking more water than you're actually drinking, on a day-to-day basis. And I
Yeah.
think just to highlight before, we were sort of saying, if we're thinking about movement or we're doing the scoring, we're like, oh, this is an off week. But more often than not, we tend to have more of those off weeks than
Yeah.
we think we do. And that's actually more of the norm.
Absolutely. It's so eye-opening. And that's why I said a lot of people don't like this approach. It is the way to do it. None of us want to take a good hard look at our bad habits. None of us want to, look and say, oh yeah, I do tend to skip breakfast 5 days a week. Oh yeah, I know that I ate at Starbucks once or twice last week, but it turns out it was 4 times, right? We don't want to look at our bad habits, but usually that's going to be what helps us turn things around. Is really taking that good hard look, just being honest with yourself or honest with your health coach, taking a good look at it because we get into such a routine. Life is habits at this point, right? We've been doing things the way we've been doing for so long that unless something really stops us from doing it, we're just going to keep doing it the same way. Even if that thing is causing us bloating or low energy or whatever. We need to kind of push the pause button and take a good hard look at our own stuff, reassess and think, is this how I want things to be moving forward?
And that's where the personalized approach is really important
Yeah.
because, even when it comes to bloating, everybody has different triggers. I know for me, for bloating, stress is a big one. So,
Yeah.
I can think back and go, and sometimes, beans and legumes and things, and I can go, well, I haven't
Mhm.
eaten any of that, been really good dialed in with nutrition, whole foods and things. And then I'll be like, oh, it's stress. Like, bing, bing, done the homework. I know what my triggers are.
Yeah.
And then if you know that, you can then add in some more of those, whether or not it's meditation or some gentle movement or,
Mhm.
whatever
Yeah.
your stress coping mechanisms are.
Exactly. And for me, I don't have any problems with beans. My husband is Latino and we eat a lot of beans in my house. I suffer from bloating from lots of other stuff. Beans for me is not one of them. And so, like you said earlier, we're all individual. You can't say beans cause bloating for everybody because that's not the case. So we do really need to personalize it to what's going on for you. Because if I just restricted everything out of my diet that's bad for someone, there's nothing left for me to eat, right? If dairy's bad for someone and gluten's bad for someone else and beans are bad for someone else, and you start restricting all of these things, then we're not doing what's best for us. And so, really knowing how your body works and how your body handles stress. And that's a big one too. You could probably be like Kate, if you were eating, excuse me, if you were stressed and you ate beans, bloating, probably. If you were not stressed and ate beans, maybe it doesn't bother you as much. So we do have to take into account the combination of things as well and really pay attention to how they add up together.
Mm. And I think also being aware too that our bodies do change. And even though something, let's say gluten, might not have affected you in your 20s or 30s, you might start to have an intolerance to it in your 40s. So it's not unusual that things may change as you age as well.
Absolutely. I recently underwent a major surgery and it has definitely changed how a lot of things work in my body, some for the better and some for the worse. Pain wise and so forth, it helped a lot. I actually had a spinal surgery. And so it's allowed me to get exercising more and doing more activity things. It definitely affected my digestion for months and months, after having a major surgery. So as things happen in our life that changes inside of our body, things have to change and we need to be able to adjust with it for sure.
Mm. And I think you make a great point because a lot of people wouldn't put those two things together, or they would be like, oh, but I had that a few weeks ago and it's totally unrelated to this. But
Yeah,
as we were saying before, everything is interconnected.
it's all connected. Absolutely. I say that all the time. It's all connected. There's so many pieces that we can connect this big spider web, right? Connect it all and start paying attention to it. And that's where something like a Food Mood Health Journal will come in, where you can actually see it for yourself. Because again, we get used to doing our own routine and we think, oh, I am really healthy. I do all these good things. Oh, but yesterday I only had 2 glasses of water. Oh, and last night I only slept that 6 hours. And we start to look and actually think, okay, well, maybe that happens more often than I'm realizing.
Mm. And what do you want women to know about their health? If there's one message that you can really get out there, as, part of your passion for helping women, what is it?
That you don't need to struggle with it. So many women are struggling thinking, I am just getting older. This is how it has to be. My body's done. I'm getting older. I'm just at the end of my good years. That's not the case at all. There's absolutely things we can all do. So we all have our own health stuff going on, but with some time and some effort and some support, your concerns can be figured out. There are things you can do. So if you're not feeling good when it comes to energy or weight loss or bloating, there's something that we can absolutely do about it. So if you have low energy, let's think about getting to the root cause. If you have bloating, let's figure out what that cause is. Don't feel like just because maybe one healthcare professional has said everything's normal on your lab tests, don't feel like you have to be stuck with that health concern. If you're taking your health seriously and it's really a priority for you, we can absolutely implement little things that can in turn make a really big difference.
Mm. And you said root cause, and I think that's the key, isn't it? It's not the kind of band-aid approach and trying to just get by. It's really going back through your health history, doing these, reviews of your health and mood and emotions to really get to that root cause.
Absolutely. When we talked earlier about everything being all connected, um, sometimes it leads us to band-aid solutions, right? If we feel this way, we take a Tums. If we feel this way, we take a headache pill. If you have a headache, take a headache pill. But it's not actually going to stop you from having headaches in the future, is it? You might need it to get through this particular headache, but ideally, we actually figure out what's causing those headaches and deal with that. And so let's figure out what's causing the low energy and deal with that. Let's figure out what's causing the bloating. Let's figure out what is actually going on behind the scenes so you don't have to go through the hard days that we go through. There's always going to be hard days. We can't get rid of all of them. However, there's generally a lot that can be done.
Yeah. And as we sort of said before, just those little things add up over time. Those small little healthy habits, that you just try once, but then you start to make a regular part of your routine, over time, that 1% change, even it's 1% every day at the end of the month,
Yep.
that's a 30% change.
Yep, exactly.
And
Absolutely.
with the future of health, I think it's, changing so rapidly. There is so many more, new technologies coming in. What are you excited to see come through in the field of health?
I'm actually so excited for health. I've been in the health industry now for 25 years, which is amazing. I started out as a registered massage therapist back in 1997 when even things like massage were not commonly accepted for health. They were more done in a spa for relaxation, but the health benefits were not as well known. And when we have progressed through these years, I've definitely seen a lot more people with open minds to trying more things, from medical doctors to the public. And so as more things come to light and people are willing to give it a try or willing to understand and learn about how it affects our body, makes this so much better. So take things, for example, as I mentioned, the parasympathetic nervous system. So things like our vagus nerve, putting our body in that rest and digest state is so important. And there's so many studies about it now. Even just a few years ago, it wasn't very talked about. But at this point, we know that if we are eating a muffin and a coffee, running out the door on our way to work, really stressed, our body's not actually digesting that food properly. We need to actually be sitting and chewing it properly and digesting it properly for us to be getting the benefits out of food. So when we look at our nervous system and we look at all the things that it affects, then the studies that are coming out on that, I think, are going to help us turn back to maybe the way we used to do things. When I was young, we sat at the dinner table with my parents. We had to sit there and eat our food. I had to sit there till my plate was clean. I'm not saying we all need to do that by any means, but sitting at the table when we're eating is so much healthier than running out the door or than eating in front of the TV. And so as we start to learn how these years and these new habits are actually affecting us, it can encourage us to make a simpler approach to food. We don't need all these fancy shakes and stuff to be healthy. We can just really eat healthy, whole foods, get into our parasympathetic state, digest it properly, and really benefit from that. And so, as more studies are done on things like this, it actually makes us look at it thinking health doesn't have to be so difficult. We can make a lot of this easier. We don't need all these really fancy diets or fancy shakes. We can just make this easier by cooking our food at home and sitting and eating it in a really calm manner. Those are some of the simplest things we can do that actually are going to benefit us. And I love that studies are proving that now too.
Mm. And it's interesting you say that because even things like, Eastern medicine or, even Chinese medicine that has thousands, it's been around for thousands of years, but there weren't ever studies, it was kind of deemed as alternative,
Yeah,
health because there weren't studies. There are so many more studies on that now to show and prove that, acupuncture does do what we thought it was doing, or what people said it was
exactly.
doing. So
Yeah.
it is
A lot of
lovely to
things
see
were
that.
word of mouth, right? It was
Yeah.
passed down kind of knowledge. And so, because it was passed down kind of knowledge, it wasn't always accepted from some of the newer medical professionals. They needed to look at it with a scientific approach. So now that they are, they're saying, oh, yeah, it does work. This is great. These are more tools that we have. So you're right. I love that. People have been doing this for so many years. And now it's not just for relaxation. There's a lot of health benefits to all kinds of modalities.
Mm. And as we've been talking in this whole podcast, it's really finding that personal approach and what works for you, because
Yeah.
acupuncture may work for one person, massage may be great for another. It's really exploring your options and then trying them and seeing what works for you and your body.
Absolutely. We have to take charge of our own health, right? We have to prioritize our own health. We need to do our own research and figure out what works for us. We need to do that Food Moon Health Journal to figure out what's bugging us. Really dig into our own stuff. No one else is going to do it for you. You need to really take charge, prioritize your own self, your own health, and then start testing out these little things that can actually add up and make a big difference. These little simple healthy habits like acupuncture or like going for an after dinner walk, those are the things that can actually change our health over time.
Mm. And I always like to ask my guests, as we're getting close to the end of our
Yeah.
conversation, is there's one piece of health advice that you could give our listeners that after listening or watching this podcast, they could go and instigate straight away, what would it be?
It would be to pick one healthy habit that you're going to actually start working on. Commit to yourself, right? Take charge of your health, like we said you're going to do, and actually pick one thing. Chances are you already know what that's going to be. If you have a couple ideas in mind, you might be saying, oh, I've been meaning to go to bed earlier. I've been meaning to drink more water. So pick that one thing and actually start doing it. Do it for the next 30 days. Check in with yourself. See, did that help? Do I feel any different? Does it make a difference for me? Really treat it like your own science experiment. Test it on yourself, follow through, commit to doing it, and just see how it goes.
Mm, love it. Simple, easy, simple to just go out and instigate.
And it's one thing, right? It's not all the things, it's pick one.
Now, where can listeners reach out and connect with you and follow you?
So my website is compassrosenutrition.ca. I'm in Canada, so it ends in .ca. And on the website, or if you take the quiz that Kate's going to drop for you, I'll send you an email with that personalized 3-step plan as to which healthy habits you can focus on. So you'll get an instant email from me. Hit reply and tell me what it is. If you want to connect with me, please send me an email. I absolutely reply to every email that comes in to make sure that you know what you need to do to move forward. And I'm absolutely here to have the conversation with you and help make sure that you're supported in your next steps.
Amazing. Well, I'll link that all up in the show notes for everybody. So head across to the show notes to check that out. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Gaylene. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a good day, everyone.